Icesis Street. I can't wait for you to tell us about some of the things that we have here that you have done this semester and last semester. Let's start with this one. What are we looking at here?
Thumbnails for one of my work last semester back in 2020. I was told to pick two emotions, almost kind of opposite of each other, and then put them together and make them kind of uniformed in a way. So what I chose was to do sort of like a relaxing feel with kind of like tension. I wanted the focus to be close to the rule of thirds. So I wanted the two big tension, two big emotions to be the things that draw you in. They're meant to help guide me to my final piece. And I really like the idea of having the two opposite, the tension and the relaxation sides kind of split almost because they're just so opposite of each other.
There's a conflict that you have illustrated so well.
The title is Doubt in a Time of Order. It was kind of like the doubt of this ever going away. We kind of had hopes near the beginning, like, oh, this is just gonna pass through, it's gonna fly by. A year, 2 years, still here, and it's getting even worse and bigger than ever before. So that's where the doubt starts to seep in, like, is this ever gonna go away? Is this ever gonna change? But what we truly need is an order to everything. In order for this to clear over, we need people to work together and to kind of have a sense of this is what we need to do. The order is top left side, where everything's kind of like geometrical shape, kind of lined, very crisp, and the doubt is the right bottom, where everything's just kind of crazy and kind of just lucid, very much so. We had to score it using the backside of our X-Acto knife. So I had to score it in 3 different spots and use the light kind of as my guide to create the shadows. It's like a barrier.
Who is this?
That's me, that's my self-portrait. The name of the portrait is The Butterfly and I. This assignment really helped me take the step that I needed to get where I am today. I really thought about what I could convey that was different than what I truly show in class, which is kind of more of like my goofy side that most people probably won't see unless they truly know me. I was thinking, what could I do to convey that? I used gray paper and China markers.
Tell us about this beautiful piece of art.
Well, this one was supposed to be our through the window one. This one's called Anticipate. After a couple of my thumbnails, I started feeling like the clock was more of the time that I'm feeling is passing by while I'm just stuck at home. But outside, you could see the clock and a bit of Midlands, and the time's just passing by as I'm doing my work. Well, the clock is from Midlands, and this was actually an area where I used to sit at a lot during Midlands with my friends. We would sit near the stage area, and we would just talk. It's really kind of like this homesick feeling of, I used to be there.
I love the fact that you say that this artwork that we just saw, what was the name of it again?
Anticipate.
Thank you so much for all that you've been able to add to the meaning of your work. Leah Doire, welcome. I'm so glad that you gave me the opportunity to interview you about your art. I think you call it The Guardian. You were in Art 111 in the fall 2020. That's the beginning drawing class, beginning drawing 1. And one of the things that you did so well in that class was plan with visual thoughts. And so you have some thumbnails over here to the right. Where did this idea come from?
Well, first off, I had seen somebody online, like surrealist art, where they would draw sharks in places you wouldn't really see sharks, like in abandoned buildings or on highways. I had kind of had this idea of broken and vulnerable and maybe like in a dark place. So that's where I got the idea for like a forest. I really like sharks. I feel like a lot of times after people go through something, they kind of guard themselves and they may seem to others kind of cold or not necessarily like ferocious, but maybe a little bit aggressive, a little bit reserved and misunderstood.
In this environment that you're creating where you're vulnerable and hurt and damaged, you're also not threatened. This is not a bad guy we're looking at. And you say he's a guardian, but a guardian of what?
The hurt and vulnerable parts of yourself. That I really had fun getting to play around with that idea and come up with something a little bit out there, I guess. Like maybe not what you would expect.
It's wonderful to see the process of your work. I just wonder if there's a part 2. Do you have any idea what part 2 would be about? The Guardian part 2.
Yeah, I probably would come up with a few ideas.
Just tell us about these thumbnails.
I know the portrait one was really important. Like, I had a bit of a disconnect between trying to draw what I thought the face looked like versus what my face looked like. So that's why you see like those weird triangles.
Let's look at it. It's just so beautiful. This is just amazing.
It's definitely a different medium. I had never really used anything like it. I had never used China marker. I had colored pencils, but I had never actually done a full illustration with them. This was all really new to me. I already knew what the picture I wanted it to be like on the other side of the window, but I was really having trouble with filling in the foreground. And I was like sitting on the floor and just trying to get different angles. The sewing machine was just there. Even though it was the first time I'd ever done like a landscape with pen and ink, I had more control with the China marker. This one specifically, it holds a lot of meaning, really emotional. Technically, most of everything that you see there is gone. This was where I lived back in Puerto Rico. It used to be my grandmother's house, and it was built by her father, like the house. This was just like the front yard. That little dog house that's made out of wood, it housed, I don't even know how many dogs. I know that boulder that's right there, my grandmother had it moved there from another place just because she wanted it there. Everyone would like sit on it and whatnot. The hurricane and all that, and it took literally everything. I don't even know if that tree is still there. And sadly, even the dog that's in the picture after the hurricane, no one ever found her again. Her name was Perla, which is pearl in Spanish. Perla. So I just wanted to see like which one would look good on that paper. This one was, interestingly enough, also connected to Puerto Rico. It's not the official flower, but it does grow there. I didn't do it with the intention of it being sad. I know things sort of come out of your like subconscious. I mean, I was just doing it because, I thought it was cool. I don't get to express myself often. It took me so much work that I'm really proud of it. And I actually ended up gifting it to my mother.
So you took Art 111, but you also took Art 112, both the drawing classes. What do you plan to do next?
I ended up deciding on just going to USC and taking their media arts.
Curtis Lynn, let's talk about your art. You did something called the Rook 2020. That was for Art 111, wasn't it?
It was.
And you did something incredible for the final assignment, which was called the Mindscape. And you did a lot of preparation for it. Let's take a look at it. This is an unusual key. Where did you get the idea for a hand at the end of the key?
Well, I thought about what would be an interesting body part to have included, and I thought, what if the key shakes your hand? I was thinking of chess pieces, and Rook is actually one of the more visually interesting pieces to me. It was just a way to incorporate something that was a person without being a person. I thought about, well, what if it was somebody looking down and this was a giant chess set? This was in the second set of thumbnails. These ones were trying to see a different perspective, trying to maybe move around the piece or the shot and see where it might be a little bit more interesting. I wanted the Rook to be the central focus of it. Then I saw this lighthouse in Greece, and that was the inspiration for having the Rook on top of this little island.
A Greek lighthouse on an island, and you've got this idea of a rook in your mind.
Yeah, that's more or less what the final piece looked like. That was the final layout for it. I decided to change the island that it was on to be a woman's body where she was kind of reclined.
Now we get to another rendition.
This one was using pen. That's the graphite final version of it. The China marker thumbnails for how the Rook would look so that I could have an idea of where the shadows and the highlights would fall and how I would represent those. This was China marker on gray paper.
And this is the one I really am interested in.
I've got a drawing tablet, so I opened up Photoshop and I just redrew it using Photoshop.
But was this part of the assignment?
Since I had heard that we were also having the opportunity to submit to stylists, I wanted to try using a medium that I was more familiar with and one that I was more comfortable using. So I decided to another version of it that was digital. A stylist said that I would be featured in the Spring 2021 edition.
The Rook by Curtis Lynn. Well, Curtis, thank you so much for sharing with us, with me and everybody, what you did in the fall of 2020 in Art 111. You didn't just follow the assignments. You're not confined by lesson plans. You applied your work to something new. What an example of higher order thinking. What a wonderful student you have been, an example and a model of thinking for yourself.